Hello, friends. I'm Brian, and this is Gizmo Board Games. And today I'm going to look at my top 10 games from my most recent 10x4 solo challenge. And that is when I take 10 games and play them 4 times each over the course of 4 month period. So roughly I play each one of these once a month for 4 month span. That's not the reality of the logistics of getting them played, but that's basically what it comes down to. And this idea came from Allie at the Family Meeple, so check her out. She does a similar 10x5 challenge over 6 months, which I'm probably going to start doing next year. But this year I'm doing a 10x4 challenge over 4 months, so 3 times a year. And hopefully you can make out these 10 games. I tried to focus them the best I could to try to get them all in a good view here. But these are the 10 games I played, and we'll go through them in order of my most or least favorite to most favorite play. And these are for solo only plays. Some of these games might change in multiplayer view. Like I might not like it as much as a solo game as I do a multiplayer game, or vice versa. I'm just basing these rankings solely on their solo mode. And not all of these games come with a solo mode. Some of them have fan-made modes. Some of them are straight out of the box as they are. And some of them are special expansions that include the solo game. So that's the basis of what this is. Let's go ahead and look at my number 10 game from this past 4 months. And that is going to be Rolling Realms, specifically the Beyond the Realmiverse solo mode. I was excited for this one because the solo mode that came in the base Rolling Realms box was okay. It was just kind of a little golf course where it told you which 3 realms to play and kind of the scoring basis in order to, score well on the hole and move on. But over the course of the years, they've thrown out more and more expansion realms that you can play, and the base solo version didn't cover those expansions. So the Beyond the Realmiverse solo mode was created to include every realm ever, because all you're going to do is randomly pick 5 realms as your base of operations. And then from those realms, you're going to choose 3 to play with specific rule sets for each chapter of the game as you play. And those are not realm specific like they were in the original game. They're just, play this way with these specific rules for these realms. And then you're going to choose 3 of your 5 basic realms and play. And then after each game, you're going to basically return 1 to the stack and put a new one in your base of play. And that'll be an option for your next game, whether it's the same chapter again or if you're moving on to the next chapter. In the end, why this is number 10, while I like Rolling Realms, I've kind of moved on from it, and this campaign, if you will, didn't really add anything new and different as I was hoping it would. Really, it's just a different way to rotate the realms in as you play, and that was about it. And I didn't get very far into it either. I got kind of bored of it, not gonna lie. So Rolling Realms Beyond the Realmiverse, it's a nice way to add all the realms into the solo play. So if you really like Rolling Realms anyway, I'd say go ahead and get it if you don't have it and you play solo a lot, because it will add that solo variant to the game that gets all the realms played, not just the basic ones from the base game. So from that regard, I say get it. It's not that expensive anyway, but if you're like me and you've kind of moved on from Rolling Realms, then you probably don't need to get it. It's not adding that much that you couldn't already just kind of do yourself anyway. So that's my number 10, Rolling Realms. Number 9 for my 10x5 solo challenge for the middle of 2024 is going to be New York Zoo. It's an Uwe Rosenberg game, and I really like this game. It's fun. It's easy. It's basically a tile laying game with a little bit of manipulation as you fill those tiles with the 5 different animals. You're going to be able to draft, your refreshment stands and your rides and things like that and add them to your board. And all you're doing is racing to be the first one to fill up your zoo with locations, whether those are pens for the animals or those entertainment centers and things like that I was talking about. So it's a real fun game. I really enjoy introducing it to new people. It's easy to play. You can teach it to anybody. It doesn't take long at all. I recommend New York Zoo as a multiplayer game. As a solo game, it's okay. All you're doing is you're taking actions around the board, and you get 2 times around the board to try to fill your zoo. and you're limited on your options for how far you can move on each turn, because as you take a 0 through 4 movement action tile, you're going to flip it over, and you can't flip it back over until they've all been flipped. So basically, on each turn, you're going to go from 0 to 4 spaces, which is different from the normal game. And then that movement is basically locked in until you've taken all the other movements. So it's a neat puzzle. The problem is it's pretty much the same puzzle, because the only thing that's going to change from game to game is how the tiles are laid out around the board, and that's it. So it's a there's not much variability in this solo game, and that's why it's kind of on my number 9 spot, because I really do enjoy the game. And I guess in the main game there's not a whole lot of variability either, other than tile shakeup, but your movement's not as locked in place as it is in the solo mode. So that's where it's just a puzzle you can kind of solve, and that's about it. So not super exciting, the solo mode, but it is worth a few plays if you can't find other people to play the game with. Again, I recommend the game a lot. The solo game just gets kind of puzzly repetitive in a way, so that's why it's my number 9. All right, my number 8 game for my 10x4 solo challenge is going to be Villagers. And Villagers is a game where you've got a lineup of different villager cards that you're going to be able to draft from, depending on the number of draft points you have basically from your village. And then you're going to build based on the number of build points you have from your hand. And as you build, you're going to be building upon other villages that you have. So you can make your mine into a blacksmith, into, you know, a jeweler, or whatever the case is, and build up and get more points and other abilities from those. Or you can just straight up build specialty buildings and score end game points from those specialty buildings. And that's all the game is. It's a draft from the layout game, and then build from your hand game up to your limits for a few rounds, until the cards basically run out, and then you're going to score. Pretty simplistic, and it's fine. The solo mode adds a little countess and some event cards that you're going to have to deal with from round to round. So whether those are going to, you know, give the countess more points based on things in your village or the countess's village, or it's going to, you know, tie your hands during the draft phase or the build phase, or at the end of the round or whatever. It might do something negative to you. It's neat. It's fun. It's fine. It plays pretty quick, but it didn't excite me all that much in the end. You know, draft, play, count points. Draft, play, count points. It's fine. It didn't entice me a whole heck of a lot in the end with the gameplay, and I didn't get into some of the expansion modules and things that are in here either. So maybe some of those make it a little bit more fun, but in the end, it just wasn't that exciting for me. The puzzle again is the puzzle of just managing with the event cards and then dealing with the cards that are on the table, because in the solo mode you're just not getting through the deck, so you might not even ever see cards you need to get that one big card that you drew at the beginning out of your hand, because I think you're only using about a third of the total deck of villager cards in the solo game, whereas, you know, as you add more players, you're going to add more cards from the deck into the game, and then you're more likely to see the cards you're looking for. So this was kind of a game that came down to a lot of just luck of the draw, and nothing super exciting. You know, some of the event cards were fun to kind of think around, and other ones were non-entities, especially like in the first round. You know, you're going to, you know, lose points for every locksmith you have or whatever, and be like, okay, I just won't play a locksmith in this round, and then that event card doesn't do anything. As an example, I don't remember the specifics, but I do remember that being the case for at least one or two of my games where, oh, I'll just ignore that event card for now, and it didn't matter. So Villagers is all right. That's about it. It's fine. It's a fine game. It's a fine game for drafting and playing. And again, entry-level game. Number, what are we on, 7? Number 7 is Point City, right there next to Villagers. Point City is, again, I really like Point Salad. And Point City plays a lot the same, a little different, a little more gamey than Point Salad, but you're drafting a card from a board layout and then adding it to your your village either as the vegetable resource, or in this case they're not vegetables, they're just various resources you have around the city, I guess. Or you're playing it as the city by spending your resources cards. So it's just kind of that, get the resources, use the resources, and then kind of like Splendor, as you build out your city cards actually count as the various resources that are on their card. So you need less resource cards in your hand as your city grows, because your city provides those resources. In addition to that, you can get the civic cards, which allow you to take one of a number of various end game or special objective card or discs, and then your score based on how well you do with those in your city. So I like it. It's a lot of thinky. I want to play this one. I haven't played this one with people. I've only played it solo. I want to see how it feels not solo, because in the solo mode it's predictable, and so it becomes a little bit of a puzzle to solve. Again, because the solo automa, whatever you want to call it, is going to take a set, what am I looking for? A set design of cards, and you can kind of play to that as best you can to keep them drawing resources, because as they draw resources, they're not scoring those points. But if you give them a bunch of cities, then they're going to score a lot of points. So it's just managing the puzzle of the board as best you can and limit their scoring cards. And once I got into that, it got kind of easier to play. So, but it was fun. I do enjoy the play style of Point City, and the solo mode gets the job done. I just wish it was less predictable than it is. All right, my number 6 favorite game for my 10x4 solo challenge is going to be Near and Far. Near and Far is a Ryan Lockett game, and his games match story game, kind of like D&D, with actual Euro game. And this is the first one of his I've ever played. I hear they're all pretty similar in style, but the substance changes and the story changes. And in Near and Far, I rather enjoyed the mix. I'm not much usually of a story gamer. I don't play D&D. I didn't get into Gloomhaven and those type of campaign games. So I'm not a story gamer. I like the Euro mix of this. And that's where the problem comes, is I felt by the time I got rolling a little bit, the game was over, because the automa, I guess, it keeps it moving pretty good. And this is a game where it's a fan-made solo mode. There isn't a solo mode that comes with the game. The game you can actually play either competitive or cooperative. There's also like a campaign style, a character story style, or just straight up play the game, or maybe that's just cooperative style. I don't remember. There's 3 different ways you can play it. I played a character story. I played through the character, and then the automa controlled the character as well. I feel like this fan-made solo is a good way to get a feel of how to play the game and how the game plays when you don't have other people. And it does a good job of playing the game and getting the things out there that keep the game flowing. But I feel like the game actually suffers from some of the challenges you need to do. By the time you ever get close to getting all the resources you need, the game's going to be over, even in a multiplayer game, because the game ends once somebody gets all their tents out, basically, and your tents are flowing pretty naturally, I would think, in any game, unless everybody's just kind of sitting around hoarding things. And I guess in that regard, you could see a bunch of those artifact cards getting played, but and especially in the solo mode, I had to keep up with just moving, so I could never collect the resources I needed to play those cards. And for every card you have in your hand at the end of the game, you're actually losing points. But this isn't really a game about the points so much. The points are a part of the game, but the game is more about just moving the story, going out and finding those quests, especially in the character mode that I played, and you know, getting the story of your character moving and kind of leveling up a little bit. Although I wasn't too fond of the choices of the leveling up abilities. Some of them are okay. Most of them are just like, I don't care. And I don't know. Nothing excited me about the game except for the playing it. I enjoyed playing it. I enjoyed the Euro part of it, with occasionally getting a story beat and getting things from, you know, successful challenge. And that was another thing about the character I played. Getting the successful final story beat was impossible. I think I needed to get a 12 attack power, which means I would have had to have all my little companions would have needed to have a bunch of attack on them. And I would have needed to have a couple of attack artifacts out or treasures. And those are things like I can try to get, but if I spend a turn not getting what I'm hoping to get, like a treasure card just doesn't help in that regard. I've wasted a turn. If I go, out and farm, for characters, they still might not be the ones I need. So I enjoyed it, but I didn't. It's hard to put a finger on. I'd play it again for sure, try a different character story. But the one I played it was rough by the end. And so I didn't have as much fun in my last game, and that's my lasting impression is my most recent game. And the Automa, I think, just had to beat like a 3 thought power to beat it was stupid. Like they got it easily done, and they already succeed automatically anyway in this mode. But the fact that I could have succeeded in their final challenge, and I had to spend the whole game trying to get halfway to what I needed for mine, it felt bad. And you don't even know what that challenge is until you go attempt it. So it's not like I could see it coming. I had to do the things I needed to do to get to the point where I could go attack that story beat and then find out I have no shot against this. And then I had to regroup basically halfway through the game. And by then the game's over. So that's that. That's near and far. It's okay. I'm not sure it's my style of game, but it wasn't a straight story game. It had the Euro elements that I do enjoy. What are we at? Number 5? Number 5. Apiary. The latest, or one of the latest Stonemaier games about space bees, whatever. It's tile kind of buying and laying on your board and generating resources, and you're spinning worker bees out there when they have different power levels, and you can't do some actions without having your level 4B, 4 out of 4B to go do it. And this is where the solo mode got frustrating, because their bees advance a lot quicker and can do a lot more things, whereas I have to work for it. And so I was working towards some special in-the-game tiles, and then the bee would just go out there and boom, they got it, no problem. So now I've got all these resources, and finally the bee I was planning on putting there worked up, and it's gone, and that's that. Now I got to do something different, and that feels bad. I don't like, and that could happen in the regular player game too. So but I could see that maybe they're working towards that one as well, and hope that I get there first, or maybe they're not working for that one, but they've got a level 3B and I got a level 4B, so I can just go there now and take it if I'm concerned about it. Things like that. There's ways to mitigate by seeing what other players are doing around the board, and with the Automa, it's flip a card, you lost that thing you were working for. The end. There's no warning, no planning for the potential of it, other than hope they don't flip that card. And that feels bad. Otherwise, the game plays pretty good. Exactly the same, I would say, as the multiplayer game. I never played it in multiplayer. But there's a bunch of different things going on. A bunch of different ways to get resources and spend resources and build up your hive. And 5 or 6 different ways to score in-game points. So I like a lot of the variety. I feel like this is a decent, mid-level game. I can introduce it to most gamers and get into it and play it. It's got worker placement. It's got a little bit of area control. It's got resource management and tile laying and things like that. So it's a fun game. The Automa it felt bad at times when they could just do the thing that I've been working for turns at trying to do, and then it's gone. So that was the feels bad moment of Apiary, and that's why it's just sitting here at number 5. Number 4 is going to be Marrakesh, which is strange because it's one of my more favorite stuff on Feld games. But again, this is another one of those games where you're in the solo game, the Automa's got a sideboard where they're just going to collect the Keshis and do things based on what color it is and how many of them they've got. And the things like that. But this game, I almost had to play it at base level because as soon as I started adding some of the expansion elements in it, they got a bit too powerful. And we're running up the score. Plus, I don't know how balanced the scoring is because I don't think I ever won any of the games. Even when I felt like I had a good game, they were just outscoring me. And so I much prefer this game in the group setting. I think 3 or 4 players is probably would be the happy place because you just got more variety in the game. Instead of up to 6 Keshis per turn, or these are the cubes basically that you're dropping in the tower, and they're coming out randomly because some of them might get stuck or whatever. But if you're each only putting 3 in a turn, maybe you'll have 3 to 7 to draft from, depending on if anyone were stuck previously, and things like that. But with 4 players, there's going to be 12 of them coming out. So you're just going to have more Keshis to play with, more Keshis added to the board, more chance to really focus a color or two. Whereas you just don't have that as much in the lower player count. And, the solo mode is a 2-player game. Otherwise, I like the game. I enjoy the game. It's got a lot. Again, it's a stuff on Feld game. There's so many different ways to score points, so many different things to do, so many different options on the plate. I do enjoy the game. The solo mode just was one of those, again, kind of feels bad, and it's kind of confusing because you've got to manage a lot with the Atoma about what they're drafting, and then, well, I guess that's really the only management, but as you add more of the expansions, it's just more complex. But there's basically laws for what they're drafting, and then laws for what they're doing with the Keshis on their turn as well. With priority lists and things like that. And it's just a lot of management that I would rather not have to deal with, where, in like AP area, I don't have to deal with that. I flip a card and they do the thing and move on. But in this game, you've got to figure out how they're drafting Keshis, how they're spinning Keshis or not spinning Keshis, and getting Keshis and scoring. And so that's why this is number 4. I really do enjoy the game. It's just a lot to manage, and it seems a little bit imbalanced. So just number 4. We're getting ready for the top 3. My number 3 favorite game for my latest 10x4 solo challenge is going to be Scholars of the South Tigris. I really like this game. It's a great design. It's super heavy, though. If you're familiar with Garfield games, they've gotten heavier and heavier as they've come on. And this is the most recent game other than Inventors, which should be arriving any day now. But it's heavy, and I don't mind that. I like heavy games. Obviously, my top, you can see what's left if you're paying attention. My favorite games are going to be more heavy, more Euro game. But with Scholars, it's a lot of management again. So there's a lot of solo player rules to kind of figure out, and again, it's kind of like Marrakesh. You've got a lot to do on not your turn. And that's not as fun in a solo game. But it's not a complex one. They've literally got 8 cards, something like that you're laying out in order. It's like a lot of their most recent solo games, and it's not as hard as the Wayfarers solo if you've played that one. It's similar. I feel like this one's more beatable because I did win once. And the games were all closer. But it is a lot of management, and the game itself is pretty complex already. So you're already thinking a lot on your own turns. So you're just adding that to the solo mode. That's why it's number 3, because it could be number 1 or 2. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy the game. It's a complex game. And in one of my games, I know I was playing wrong because I was didn't know my left from my right, basically, or wasn't paying attention. But it said put a thing on the leftmost card, and I was putting it on the rightmost card, and then they were constantly cycling that card, and that card led them to a lot of points. But I figured that out after a game or 2. Hopefully, it didn't do too long. But I did figure out, that says left, not right, and that changed the game a bit for me in that I was a lot closer. And Scholars, fun, but it is a confusing, it takes a few plays to really wrap your head around the game itself. So add in a pretty tough solo mode, and it took a few plays for me to get comfortable with playing, but I did really enjoy it. A lot of fun, Scholars of the South Tigris, but it is a pretty thinky, heavy game to play. Number 2, surprisingly, Newton. This solo mode is you play the game, and then you see what your score is. I usually don't like beat your own score games, but I really like Newton. It's a game basically where you're taking just card actions. You play a card from your hand, you take action based on how many of that type of action card you have. So if I'm playing a travel card and it's my first travel card, I get 1 travel movement. But then on my next turn, if I play a travel card, I've now got 2 travel movements on the board, and then 3 if I got a third one. And you can pick up like tiles that give you more of those actions as well to add to your board. So there's just different things you can do. You can travel, you can advance up tracks, you can collect straight resources. And all this to try to get your cubes on the board or your things in your library, and just to give you points. You're playing 6 rounds of 5 actions, I believe. It might be 6 rounds of 6 actions. But the solo mode, you're just playing Newton, and Newton's a really fun Euro game that doesn't take very long to play. I think I played the games in about 30 minutes each because it pretty well flows. I can imagine, obviously, that's going to change when you have more players out there, but I'm figuring maybe 30 minutes per player. So if you've got a 4-player game, maybe you're playing 2 hours worth of game, maybe not even that long. I don't know. I've never done it, but I really like Newton. The gameplay itself in the solo mode literally is you play the game and see how you did. Not usually a fan of beat your own scores, but for me, I just enjoyed the playing of the game so much and figuring out a good strategy, because my first game, I was just doing a little of this, a little of that, and then I didn't score well. So as I played more, I realized like, oh, I really need to focus on a couple of actions and let the other ones just kind of happen if they happen. So that's why I like Newton as my number 2. Just a real fun Euro game, my kind of game. I wish it had a different solo mode where it felt more like I was playing somebody else, but maybe I'll look into doing that, or maybe somebody else already did that I can check out later. I played this one out of the box, beat your own score game, but a fun beat your own score game. So that's why it's number 2. Maybe it's number 3, and Scholars is number 2. They're dependent, but I really like that game. And my number 1, in case you can't figure it out, it's going to be Yangnan Life of Gentry. I've mentioned that game a lot lately. It's a game with a bunch of everything going on. You're using tile action selection. You're getting resources from tiles being discarded. You're going out and doing different actions on the board to try to get resources to make art of some sort. And then from where you go, you're going to place a smaller worker into the boat and try to get area control of that boat to determine end of game and end of round scoring. You're going to be drafting new tiles into your bag, so it's got action selection, action drafting, area control, worker placement, resource management. It's got a bunch of everything going on, and it comes with 6 different scenarios, campaigns, whatever you want to call them, where you can change up various aspects of the gameplay, whether it's adding new tiles in or flipping the board and getting different scoring objectives or different action abilities. So just a lot of fun. Yangnan Life of Gentry. I played it solo. The solo mode plays just like a multiplayer game, except, you're on your opponent's turn, you're just going to draw a tile and they're going to take that action. The end. And that's it. So they're always using the same starter tile, so you don't have to worry about like drafting for them or anything like that. They're just taking, the same of the tiles, so they've got each action potential twice per round, but every other round you're refilling the bag again. So it's just fun. I really enjoy this game. I've talked about it a lot. I really think you should check it out if you like thinkier Euro games that have a mix of everything, such as Dune Imperium and Lost Ruins of Arnak, and what else? Endless Winter. Those are the ones I played that have a similar feel to this, where there's a little bit of this, a little bit of that going on. If you like action selection games like Newton or like Concordia, it has that feel a bit too. And I just really enjoy it. Yangnan Life of Gentry. It's my number 1 game from my most recent 10x4 solo challenge. And that's it. Tune in again in like 4 months to see how 10 other games rate. I've got the next challenge underway already. And tune in, subscribe, like the video, do the things. Comment below if you've played any of these and what your thoughts are, especially on the solo mode comparisons compared to me. I will see you in the next video. Bye.